They laughed together on screen, but behind the curtain, a shocking betrayal shattered Hollywood's favorite duo. What really happened between Rock Hudson and Doris Day? And why did Hudson vow never to work with her again? From the outside, Rock Hudson and Doris Day seemed like a match made in cinematic heaven. Their chemistry lit up the screen in the late 1950s and early 1960s, defining an era of romantic comedies. Movies like Pillow Talk didn't just entertain, they made audiences believe in the fantasy of love, wit, and innocence. The public adored them, critics praised them, and studios cashed in on their box office power. But Hollywood magic was rarely as pure as it looked. Behind the curtain, Hudson had an easygoing charm, but he was also guarded. Doris, meanwhile, cultivated her squeaky-clean girl-next-door image that audiences expected. They worked well together professionally, but their relationship off-screen was more complicated than anyone realized. Fans imagined their connection continued off-screen, but in reality, theirs was a fragile friendship built under the weight of a judgmental Hollywood system. Hudson valued loyalty above all. In an industry where gossip could destroy careers overnight, he carefully chose whom to trust. For a while, Doris seemed to be in that circle. Yet as time went on, cracks began to form in the polished image of their partnership. When the spotlight shone brightest, they seemed unbreakable. But whispers from studio insiders and people on set hinted at a very different story. Something happened between them that no one dared to speak of at the time of fracture that changed everything. Over the years, what once looked like Hollywood's happiest pairing quietly fell apart. The answer begins with Hudson's most carefully guarded secret. On the surface, Rock Hudson looked like the perfect Hollywood leading man. Tall, possibly handsome, and charming in a way that made both women and men stop in their tracks. Studios built him up as the ultimate romantic hero, the kind of man every woman dreamed of, and every man wanted to be. Behind that crafted image, however, was a secret Hudson spent his entire career protecting, one that, in the 1950s and 60s, could have completely destroyed him. Hudson was gay in an era when even the faintest rumor about someone's sexuality could end a career overnight. Hollywood was ruthless about image, and agents, studio heads, and publicists went to extreme lengths to protect their stars. Fake marriages were arranged, staged photographs of dates were leaked to the press, and whispers were buried before they could spread. Rock lived in constant fear that someone would expose the truth. Loyalty became everything to him. If he let someone into his inner circle, it was because he trusted them to protect not only his career, but his very life. This is where Doris Day enters the picture. Rock and Doris built their on-screen chemistry into a friendship off-screen as well. At first, she represented safety for him, America's sweetheart, wholesome and untouchable. If she was by his side, nobody questioned him. But beneath that glossy image, tensions were growing that no fan could have imagined. Doris was fiercely protective of her career and her carefully maintained reputation. Her entire brand rested on innocence, morality, and being the beloved woman next door. Even being associated with scandal could tarnish that forever. When subtle whispers began circulating about Rock's private life, he expected Doris to remain a loyal friend. After all, she benefited from his presence too. Their pairing elevated her films just as much as it elevated his. But Hollywood loyalty is complicated, especially when image and survival collide. According to those who were there, Doris began to distance herself during moments when Rock needed her most. Whether out of fear, strategy, or personal choice, she didn't always step forward to shield him when others began whispering. To Rock, this wasn't just about business. It was betrayal. He wasn't naive. He knew the risks of living in secrecy and how quickly people could turn their backs. But to feel that Doris, someone he thought he could lean on, wasn't fully in his corner cut deeply. In his eyes, silence was just as damaging as speaking against him. And silence was something he never forgot. It was a dangerous balancing act for both of them, Rock clinging to his privacy, Doris guarding her image. Over time, this unspoken tension grew until one project brought it all to the surface. By the late 1960s, Hollywood was shifting fast. The glossy studio era was fading, and grittier films were taking over. For Rock Hudson and Doris Day, Once icons of wholesome romantic comedies, the change was unsettling. Both needed something fresh to prove they still mattered. And that's when whispers of a reunion project began. One project promised to revive the magic they had, captured in Pillow Talk and Lover Come Back. To audiences, the idea was irresistible. Studios were convinced nostalgia would sell, and on paper, it seemed like a guaranteed hit. But from the very first table read, the illusion cracked. Gone was the playful banter. Crew members described the mood as tense, marked by awkward silences. Rock seemed withdrawn while Doris, normally warm and lively, appeared cautious as though she were holding back. Insiders later claimed Rock had doubts even before filming began. He reportedly told friends he wasn't sure Doris was still in his corner, remembering how she had stayed silent when his private life came under scrutiny. Old wounds resurfaced the moment they were paired again. Others believed Doris was the uneasy one. Her career depended on protecting her spotless image. And by the late 60s, Hollywood was hungrier for scandal than ever. If whispers about Rock grew louder, she couldn't risk being pulled down with him. Whatever the cause, the tension was obvious. Off-camera exchanges were polite, but empty, and the sparkle that once defined their partnership had vanished. The project moved forward, but insiders admitted the energy was nothing like their earlier triumphs. Instead of restoring their legacy, the reunion only exposed the cracks. Rock left feeling more alienated than ever, convinced Doris no longer had his back. For a man who valued loyalty above everything, this was the breaking point. Doris's silence during this fragile time would cut him deeper than any failed performance ever could. To Rock Hudson, loyalty wasn't optional, it was survival. Every friend he trusted was a shield against the truth he feared the world would discover. But during the reunion years, when whispers about his private life resurfaced, something happened that changed how he saw Doris forever. Insiders claim Rock believed Doris would stand by him just as he had stood by her through personal and professional challenges. They weren't just co-stars. They had built a public image together. Fans saw them as inseparable, and in Hollywood, perception was everything. When Rock's name became tied to hushed rumors, Doris reportedly chose silence. To the outside world, her silence seemed harmless. She wasn't fueling the gossip, and she wasn't outright abandoning him, but to Rock, silence felt like betrayal. He needed allies who would publicly dispel whispers before they grew into headlines. And Doris, the woman America trusted above almost anyone else, had the power to end speculation with a single statement, but that statement never came. Some close to Hudson later suggested that Doris's decision wasn't rooted in cruelty, but in fear. Her career had been built on purity and innocence. She was marketed as the embodiment of American values. In any association with scandal, especially one as explosive as Rock's truth, could have jeopardized everything she had worked for. To protect her brand, she allegedly kept her distance when she should have leaned in. But to Rock, the reasoning didn't matter. She had chosen her image over their friendship. Worse, he reportedly felt her coldness during their reunion project wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. Crew members recalled Doris avoiding casual interactions with Rock, laughing less, speaking only when necessary. The camaraderie that once made their sets vibrant was gone, replaced by something calculated. The sting of inaction cut deeper than open betrayal. Rock wasn't asking Doris to sacrifice her career. He was asking for a show of support, a sign that she valued their friendship enough to risk standing near him when Hollywood whispers grew dangerous. Instead, he got distance. Years later, those close to Hudson would recall how he never forgot the way Doris handled those moments. He didn't rant or rage about it, he simply remembered. And once Rock remembered someone as untrustworthy, there was no turning back. It wasn't just about one project, one silence, or one rumor. To Rock, it was proof that when he needed her most, Doris Day wasn't truly in his corner. After that, their professional relationship would never recover. What happened next on set only confirmed his suspicions and made the fracture permanent. The cracks between Rock Hudson and Doris Day weren't just felt, they were seen by everyone who worked with them. Crew members, assistants, even extras whispered about how different things felt compared to their golden years together. Once filming days had been full of laughter. Rock's booming laugh could fill an entire soundstage, and Doris's playful energy kept spirits high. During their reunion project, that joy was gone, replaced by an icy stillness that unsettled everyone. Reports from the set painted a striking picture. Rock kept to himself, often slipping away during breaks to sit alone in his dressing room. He wasn't the charming prankster crew members remembered from earlier films. Meanwhile, Doris seemed equally distant, limiting her interactions with Rock to whatever the script required. The easy banter that once flowed between takes was gone, replaced by stiff professional politeness. Some claimed Rock made attempts to bridge the gap, cracking a joke or offering a warm smile in hopes of sparking the old magic. Doris rarely responded with the warmth he remembered. To observers, it seemed she was actively keeping a wall between them. This wasn't a fight that exploded in arguments or dramatic confrontations. It was something worse. Quiet, cold, a slow freeze of a friendship that once defined an era. The tension bled into the work itself. Scenes that should have carried the sparkling charm of pillow talk felt forced. The camera couldn't hide it. The twinkle was gone from their eyes. The chemistry that once had audiences swooning now seemed like two professionals going through the motions. Insiders later admitted the studio was concerned. They had banked on nostalgia, but what they got was a reminder that time and hidden resentments change everything. Behind the scenes, whispers spread. Some crew members speculated Doris was protecting her brand. Others believed Rock was quietly punishing her with distance, refusing to engage with someone he no longer trusted. Whatever the truth, the damage was clear. The partnership was broken. The very thing that made them Hollywood's dream duo had crumbled by the end of filming. Rock reportedly made a quiet but firm decision. He wouldn't put himself through it again. He told those close to him that the magic was gone, and more importantly, that Doris had proven she wasn't the loyal friend he once thought she was. For Rock, that was the final word. The fallout didn't end when the cameras stopped. Rolling it lingered, shaping how both of them moved forward. Studios noticed, opportunities dried up, and the legendary duo that once captured America's heart would never share the screen again. The betrayal was deeply personal to Rock Hudson because, in old Hollywood, loyalty wasn't just a virtue, it was survival. Stars like him lived under a microscope where one wrong move, one misplaced rumor, could topple everything they had built. Careers were made not only on talent, but on the people who stood by you when the walls closed in. For Rock, who carried the heavy burden of hiding his true identity, loyalty was worth more than any paycheck, headline, or role. When Rock felt betrayed by Doris Day, it wasn't about ego or competition. It was about survival, trust, and the one thing he valued above all else. It all came down to survival. In old Hollywood, friendship wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Stars like Rock Hudson lived under constant scrutiny, and rumors could ruin careers overnight. Allies were shields, and silence in the wrong moment could feel like a knife. To Rock, Doris Day's hesitation wasn't harmless neutrality, it was exposure. By staying silent while whispers about him circulated, she left him vulnerable to a world that thrived on scandal. Her inaction cut deeper than any overt betrayal. Rock had trusted her, counted on her to stand beside him when it mattered most. Instead, she chose her spotless image over that bond. And for a man whose very survival depended on loyalty, that was unforgivable. From that reunion project onward, he quietly closed the door. He never publicly denounced her, he wasn't that kind of man. But offers that might have brought them together again were turned down. Hollywood's golden duo was finished. It's not because of poor box office or waning public interest, but because Rock believed Doris had failed him when he needed her. The betrayal lingered. Decades later, when Rock's private life was finally revealed after his death in 1985, people saw the man behind the image, someone who had lived in secrecy, fear, and isolation. Friends recounted his charm, humor, and generosity, but also his loneliness and the sense of abandonment he felt from those he once trusted. Doris Day's name came up frequently, and insiders claimed Rock never fully forgave her. Publicly, she spoke warmly of him, calling him a joy to work with. Privately, her silence during his time of need was a wound he never forgot. Their reunion project remained a haunting symbol. Crew members remembered the subdued Rock, the diminished man who had once filled sets with laughter, and the distant Doris, polite but impenetrable. The magic that had defined their on-screen partnership was gone. Behind the glamour and smiles, a fracture had formed, one that would never heal. Rock Hudson and Doris Day's story became more than Hollywood gossip. It became a cautionary tale about the ruthlessness of an industry that demanded perfection and forced stars to hide their truths. Doris wasn't the cause of Rock's struggles, but in his eyes, her inaction contributed to the loneliness that defined his final years. On-screen, they were flawless. Off-screen, they were fractured. And while the public remembered smiles decades later, the truth of that fracture cast a long shadow over their legacy. For Rock, refusing to work with Doris again wasn't vindictive, it was survival. She had failed the ultimate test of loyalty, and in Hollywood, loyalty could mean the difference between life and career-ending ruin. To fans, they remained the golden pair, immortalized in film and memory. But for those who understood what truly happened, the shine of that golden age is forever dulled by the quiet shadow of betrayal.